Hi there. Welcome back to Different Books. I read books and I talk to you about them. This is my weekly wrap up. Here is what I'm reading, what I've read, what I'm working on reading. All of these three categories of things. It's gonna be a short one because the things I read were short things. Brain is struggling to work. It has been a day. It has been a long day. I got off work and then I almost forgot I was going to do this. So let's talk about what I finished last week. I finished two things last week. Both were short. I finished Your Utopia by Bora Chung. This is translated from Korean. This is a collection of short stories that are all futuristic, post-apocalyptic science fiction. I picked it up because I was trying to do the SFF Summer Reading Challenge. This one. I'll put a screenshot from Storygraph. I was looking for books that fit into the solar punk / cyberpunk category, and this came up as a book that may have a solar punk story. I don't think it did, but I started it anyway because it fit the translated category. So even if it didn't have it, it was translated. It's a collection of short stories and science fiction, and I'm always trying to branch out and find some of those stories. I'm currently working on a vlog where I talk about it a little bit more. I don't go into detail in it because it was kind of hard just to go into detail on a bunch of short stories without spoiling all of them. But I enjoyed the translation. I enjoyed the narration. I listened to it on audio while I was in the car, all in a day, because it's only a 5-hour book or something like that. And I listened to it on 1.75 or something. So I finished it in a day. And overall, I enjoyed it. It wasn't groundbreaking or world changing for me, but I thought it was entertaining enough that it kept me wanting to come back to it and kept me wanting to press play. Some of the stories I liked better than others. There's a couple, I don't remember the names of all of them. I really should have pulled them up. But there was one that was about a car and a robot, and it was an AI car. And the car was sentient, was a sentient AI. And it took me a minute to figure out we were from the perspective of a car, to be honest. But it was in this post-apocalyptic world. The car hadn't found a single human. It had picked up this robot that kept asking it, your utopia is 0 through 10, right? And so it was giving my day feels like this, update throughout the story. And it was this car thought that it saw a person on the roof of a building, and it was giving us the rules for robots. Then they have to always help a human. They always have to listen to human commands. And so the car was duty bound to go and try to collect this human from a roof. And I kept being how is this car getting up this building? What is the design of this building that this car can just drive up it? I was so confused on that, but other than that, I was enjoying the kind of idea of the story. A lot of them were good, and then they just kind of fell off. And I find this a lot with short stories. They don't, for me, a lot of short stories, I think, struggle with the ending. They just kind of stop. There's not a wrapping up and stuff. Some really good short stories have a thing that wraps up. Undercover by Tamsin Muir, amazing ending, actually wraps the story up. It doesn't just fall off. It doesn't expect you to finish the story and think about what you think it means, which I get it when short stories do that, but I feel a lot of them do that, and I don't want to do that with every single short story I read. The 6 Deaths of the Saint by Alex E. Harrow does a good job of not just falling off. It wraps up the story. The Backbone of the World by Stephen Graham Jones does the same thing. It wraps up the story, and it doesn't just fall off. It explains an ending. I think it's called Wilderness by Jeff Vandermeer. That one just kind of ends, I believe, but I liked how it just ended. I liked the way it ended, so I thought that was fine. So, some short stories work for me. Others just, a lot of these just, the endings didn't work for me specifically. None of them were bad. They just didn't work for me. There was another one about an elevator that got, elevator AI that got really attached to a specific human because the human touched its walls, and then it was why would a human touch me? And it became obsessed with this one human. That one was interesting. It was kind of sad, and I felt that one would have been, it needed 10 more pages to kind of expand a little bit more on things. It was just very rapid fire. And I think I wanted a little bit more from it. Seeds, I think was the other one. It was like Seeds or Seedlings. I think it was Seeds. And this is the one that I think was supposed to maybe be solar punk, but it was basically about this species of human that is no longer like fully human. They've kind of evolved. They're either plants that have evolved to be like humans or humans that have evolved to be like plants. And basically a corporation comes in and is like, we own this land, you're using illegal seeds. And so it was them kind of like dealing with that, with like the idea of, in a futuristic world, if we continue going the way that we're going, corporations will own everything. And what happens then? And I liked this kind of take on that, and I liked the ending of this one, but I felt like it needed a little bit more in some places, because it was really interesting. And I think this is one that I would have read, I would have loved if it was a longer, even just a novelette or a novella or something like maybe 100 pages. I think 60 pages would have like really done something for me. So that one was good. I will probably read more from Bora Chung. I think another collection that she has is called Cursed Bunny, and that's been on my list to check out for a while, so this kind of will make me want to check it out. I didn't hate any of it. I think a lot of them I just wanted a little bit more, and so I'm like, maybe there's other works from her that have that more that I'm looking for, because I think her ideas are very fascinating. A lot of the stories in their vein of social commentary reminded me a lot of Her Body and Other Parties from Carmen Maria Machado, which is a really good short story collection that I really enjoyed. But again, a lot of the short stories just kind of fell off at the end for me, but I really enjoyed a lot of those short stories by her. She has a short story in one of the collections I read too that Bloody Summer, I think was hers. I liked that one a lot. But so that's Bora Chung's Your Utopia. I enjoyed it. Not going to be one of my best of the year, but I did really enjoy it, and I recommend checking it out if you want to consume some short stories in science fiction, futuristic, post-apocalyptic stuff. And then in my quest to read the solar punk book, I picked up Pacific Edge by Kim Stanley Robinson. So this is a science fiction author from like the 70s and 80s, I think. And because I think this book was published in the 80s, maybe the 70s. So Pacific Edge is the third book in this kind of triptych. It's not really a trilogy, it's a triptych. So if you think of like a triptych of pictures, they're like three that go together. And they make up one big picture, but don't really, like, I guess a triptych kind of has to be in sequences, but so maybe a triad. Because it's not really a trilogy, they don't have to be read in order. But they imagine three different post-futuristic Californias. And this one is the solar punk California. So I picked it up to try to fill that spot. And it had a lot of really good reviews. It was recommended on a ton of lists for being like really, really good solar punk and kind of the foundation of the genre. Like if you want to read solar punk, you should read this one because it sets a lot of foundation work for solar punk. Let me back up and say what solar punk is, my understanding of solar punk. So the different science fictions, I really want to do a video on this, but I need to learn them all because I think it's fascinating and I need to find a good resource. But science fiction subgenres, the dog's making noises, will have, some of them will have punk on the end of them, right? So you have cyberpunk, steampunk, we know those ones, right? Even if you're not you've heard those ones like I had before I was even involved in any of this, right? So the punk is kind of things that's a way to express opposition to the government, just like punk is in general for us, like the punk sub-communities, right? It's a anti-government, anti-establishmentarianism, like against the expected roles of society, of how you're supposed to function in society, right? Like my words are very not correct, but you're getting the gist of what I'm saying. The cyber part of that is using machine integrations to go against the government or against the grain or something like that, right? And then biopunk is when you have like science that does that, like integrating different biological mechanisms. A lot of biopunk, I did watch a video that was like, why is biopunk always gross? And it's a lot of like mutated genes and stuff. The movie Splice is technically considered a biopunk movie, and the line in Jurassic Park that's like, your scientists didn't stop, I always butcher the line, but it's like, you didn't think about whether you should, just about whether or not you could, right? Like, that's the gist of that line. I always butcher it. I can never remember it completely, even though I love that part of the movie, right? So that's like the core of biopunk, essentially. Is it's supposed to be kind of like an anti-capitalist, again, like biology against capitalism type of thing, but it's always like biology gone wrong type of thing. So the movie Splice with Adrian Brody, if you've ever seen that movie haunts my dreams. Every now and then I remember it and I'm like, oh God, that movie exists. I feel like I need to rewatch it. Somebody wrote a book. Anyway, way off. I really want to do a biopunk like deep dive if you haven't figured it out, right? So anyway, this solar punk is essentially a utopia, like utopian world where everything is like kind of peaceful and stuff, but it's where humans have a really good bond with nature. Like humans are well integrated into society. And there's a couple articles about like the problem with solar punk because you lose your connection to the rest of the world, because in a true solar punk world you wouldn't be able to actually travel between spaces because of the type of batteries that you would require. And I'm like, that feels like you're only having one idea of what a battery is based on our society today, when I've seen authors like come up with other things, like, right? Like, anyway, I'm not that type of scientist. Like, I'm not that type of scientist. I can't answer those questions. But solar punk is the idea of a society that has a deep connection with nature and doesn't do anything to harm it, but works in tandem like a symbiont with nature, essentially, right? Everything's solar powered and wind powered, and we don't put any waste in the environment. We reuse everything. And Becky Chambers' Monk and Robot duology is a solar punk book, technically, according to a lot of the lists, because it has that idea, right? So in very utopic type societies. So finding books like that are kind of difficult. So I picked this one, and I'm still on my second book. My gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm just rambling a lot in this one. So the Kim Stanley Robinson book is a California that is solar punk California. As far as I got an hour, less than an hour into it before I DNF'd it. And essentially what they were doing was they had like an integrated community where there was like a mayor for the part of California they were in, and a board, like a community board, and they were digging up roads to like reuse the stuff that past societies had just left as garbage on the road. So this was a world where everyone rode bikes. Didn't seem like there were any cars. I couldn't really tell completely because, like I said, I did not finish the book. Because most of what we did in the first 45 minutes or so of the book was introduce our main character, which is fine. I was expecting that. But then we introduced the love interest. And she was described as a like Hispanic beauty multiple times. And we kept repeating this phrase like about her Hispanic features. And I putting big air quotes around that because those are the words that were used, and I was uncomfortable with the descriptions of her that way, because we were focusing on her being like curvy and strong and her sleek black hair. We focused a lot on her body in like 40 minutes, and she wasn't even introduced until like 20 minutes in. So in 20 minutes of the book, we spent a lot on her body, and I was not here for that vibe. I knew that picking up an older science fiction, I was taking a risk of those types of things being at the forefront of the book. That just was the thing for some reason for older sci-fi. So I was ready. I was not that prepared. The scene that I ended up DNFing it on, so these are mild spoilers for the first couple chapters. I think maybe it got to chapter 2. I can't remember. The first tick for me being negative was we were talking about our main character as being kind of incompetent at a lot of things. He wasn't the most intelligent, but he was just such a good guy that everyone wanted him around. And I was like, that is like an orange flag. Like, we're not quite fully red. We're just kind of like, And so I was like, we'll put it in the column of I am uncomfortable with why are we setting it up that way, right? The second red flag was there was a softball game, and our love interest, she caught the winning out. She's like very good at softball. And I was like, okay, cool. Like a sporty strong chick. The other ones seem to be the same type of way. Like, we're giving women agency, we're making them meaningful members of society. Tick, tick, these are good things, right? I was like, okay, cool. And then she had just broken up with her boyfriend of like 15 years. And our main character was like, oh, ding, I can be in love with her. And I was like, orange flag. Uncomfortable, but not a really bad thing, right? So these two combined maybe can make a red flag. She gets the winning catch. She sits down on the field, and our main character starts following the line of her legs up to where her shorts meet, to see the patch of skin just under where the cuff of the short like puckers out. And I was like, why? Right? So I was like, okay, red flag. Okay, why are we doing this? So, especially so early in the book. And then they go flying together, and they have like a pedal flyer, like glider type thing, right? And so he ends up asking her like why her relationship ended, and she starts talking about how they had different goals. And I'm like, okay, cool, like we can acknowledge different goals. He did not want kids, he didn't want to get married, he wanted to still find himself. These people are 32. They're 32 years old, and he was still trying to find himself. And she is ready to have babies and give her parents grandchildren. And she was like, I couldn't be with him anymore if that wasn't his goal. And I was like, I guess, sure. I mean, not everyone's like me and doesn't want to have kids. And some people just really want a family. Okay, sure. But then he starts thinking about how he wants kids. And he remembers his balls between his legs when he starts thinking of her fat with his babies. And I was like, absolutely the fuck not. You get 2 red flags for that and I am done. I am so fucking done. I am so done. I couldn't do it. Like, so I DNF'd it. And that was like 8 minutes for me to tell you why I DNF'd a book. So, I moved on. And I found this novella called The Bear, and it was on a list of solar punk books. I don't think it was really solar punk, but it edges around the idea of it. So I called it that for the sake of the challenge. I was comfortable with being like, look, this is the last book of the challenge. This is very close, and it was something I enjoyed, and I tried it with the other book, right? I tried. And so this called The Bear by Andrew Krivak, I think. This was a literary fiction in a post-apocalyptic world. I think it was kind of like The Road, but less sad. I have not read the book. I've just watched the movie for The Road. So this felt kind of like that, where we have this kind of post-apocalyptic future. We don't really know why people don't exist. Something happened, and it seems like some houses maybe got buried and some maybe got washed away, but so it's some sort of climate fiction future. We don't really know exactly what happened, but we are following the 2 last people in their area. They believe they are the last people on Earth. One of them is a man, and the other is his daughter. They are never given names throughout the book. It's just the man and his daughter. And her mother died shortly after giving birth to her, which is always an off-putting thing for me, because I'm like, okay, sure, fine, whatever. But there was literally no reason why we could not have had the 3 of them together in the beginning of the book. Like, but okay. So he's raising his daughter, and he's teaching her about nature and about the environment and about the way that they live, and just kind of raising her. And she's learning to hunt, and she's learning to do this, and she's learning to that. And she's a very smart, well-adjusted young girl. But it's mostly our author's thoughts about what a future that is in harmony with the earth would be like. And it seems like, in his mind, that can only happen if there are less people, because less people require less resources. And if there is some sort of post-apocalyptic event where we don't use electricity or fuel or anything like that anymore. So eventually they have to go on a journey to the ocean. They are going east, so I believe they're on the east coast. And they have to go east to the ocean to get salt, because they're out of salt for their preserving. They're making skins and all of the stuff that they need to do. They need salt. Humans need salt. Like, it's one of the major, I think, factors in our evolution is just learning how to use salt. So anyway, that's something I'm not in that type of science at all, but everything I have learned recently, salt is a major factor in our civilization. So anyway, they have to go get salt, and something tragic happens, and she ends up getting brought home by a bear. This is in the synopsis. Like, she gets brought home by a bear, And she eventually makes friends with like these other carnivores and stuff. It was very interesting that she made friends with the carnivores when the like geese were a villain. Like all of the other animals are like either food or villain, and then suddenly a bear and a cougar are like, yay, help. Like, so I don't know. It was interesting. It was fine. I gave it like a 3 because it was fine. It wasn't anything special, but I didn't hate it. And I thought it had some interesting points. I thought the prose was pretty good in some places, and I appreciated kind of what it was trying to say. But it was just kind of also sad for like just the sake of being sad. Like, I didn't think it needed to be sad. It could have been anything else, but it felt like a less depressing version of The Road. So yeah. Currently reading The Golden Fool still, but look, I've made it places. We're on page 310. So this is like a 700 page book. So we're nearly 50%. Nearly 50%. So I'm going to read more on this today. This is the second book in the Tawny Man series. I can't say much about it because it's a middle book of a series. I just can't say much about it in this type of setup. So we're still with Fitz. We are still with the Fool. I am loving this. I want to slap and shake people, which is pretty standard for me. I have a page marked, which probably means it had a quote that I liked. So let me see if I can find it. Okay. Basically they're talking about change, and Fitz gets called Changer by both Night Eyes and the Fool, and he is the Fool's catalyst. He is a catalyst for change. He has the nickname the Changer. So they are talking about change because Fitz has come back to Buckkeep, and it has changed dramatically in the 15 years that he's been away. And so the Fool says change isn't a bad thing. And Fitz says Buckkeep as it wasn't a bad thing either. The Fool replies, but change proves that you are still alive. Change often measures our tolerance for folk different from ourselves. Can we accept their languages, their customs, their garments, and their foods into our own lives? If we can, then we form bonds that make wars less likely. If we cannot, if we believe that we must do things as we always have done them, then we must either fight to remain as we are, or die. And Fitz replies, that's cheery. And the Fool insists, it's true. And it is, it's true. Like, I just really liked that. I think that was really good. I love the Fool so much. I am still convinced the Fool is the main character of this world, and everyone else is like stage dressing for them. We are viewing Fitz's eyes telling us the story of the Fool. And if you, I can't explain why without spoiling other series. So, but believe me, the Fool is the main character of these books. You are just getting the story of the Fool through other people's eyes. And I love that. I think that's fantastic. So anyway, I'm enjoying this. I have a lot left. I'm trying to finish it by the end of the month. It's the 25th today. So I think I can finish it. I'm just being really, really freaking slow. So I don't know. I'm just being really slow. You can see this jacket behind me. I'm very excited about it. This is a wool kind of like pea coat. Let me bring it down. You can kind of see it this way a little better. It's a wool oversized tartan kind of pea coat blazer. It does have these big 80s shoulder pads. So I picked it up at a thrift store for like $8. Like the lining's still really good. It does have some pilling, so I'm gonna hand wash it and then see if I can like fix some of the pilling a little bit, just cut some of it off. I don't know. So it's clearly been like thrown through the wash before, but if worse comes to worse and I can't get it the style that I want, like if it doesn't fit me the way I want, I will probably take the panels apart and sew it into something that I want. That was my plan with it. It makes me sneeze being near it. It needs to be washed. So I picked that up. So that's an exciting thing that I'm working on. My next read is hopefully going to be Fool's Fate. Still need to read Full Metal Alchemist, which I can do in a couple of days. I'm really debating saving this until next month and doing the 30 manga in 30 days that I've seen a few people doing. I think Realm of Kidlit is doing it, and I can't remember who else I saw doing it. So I want to watch their videos to see if it's just a thing for September that a few people are doing, or if it is like a standard thing, because I'm debating saving this and then going to my library and getting all of the Attack on Titan and just like binging a bunch of manga, because I could do 30 manga in 30 days, but just cram it into like a week and just do a week of manga, which I think would be kind of fun. And just do 30 manga in a week. So I'm debating doing that. But those are kind of what I'm thinking about. What I'm currently reading and loving. Hugin still has 45 minutes until dinner and he's whining at me. He's giving me his dinner wine because we just went on a walk recently. So anyway, I will talk to you soon with something else.